Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to react to why is there fighting in hockey. Let's get into it.
Hockey is known as one of the fastest games on Earth, with players flying around on blades of steel, reaching speeds of 20 miles per hour, smashing into each other, and shooting pucks at over 100 miles per hour. With all that speed comes one of the most unique
Oh,
events in all sports, the hockey fight. Unlike other sports, in hockey, players are encouraged to square up and go toe to toe, punching each other and usually ending with at least one player face down on the ice. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is a big draw for both the casual and hardcore fans alike, and is a key component to the momentum and strategy of the sport. Today, we
okay.
will break down how fighting became a part of hockey, some of the best fighters and most famous fights in history, and where fighting fits into the game today. Hockey has been a physical sport since its origins in the
Oh,
1800s.
that's back in the
Hitting,
day.
slashing, and fighting have been natural additions to the sport with its high flying, competitive nature. Early hockey was known to get too violent, and there were actually 4 players in the year 1904 alone that were killed by violent brawls and stickwork. By the time the National
Oh,
Hockey League was the controlling body of the sport, they knew they had to have some way to control the game. So, in
definitely.
1922, they implemented specific rules on fighting. In the original rulebook, the term they used was actually fisticuffs. And rather than
Okay.
ejecting players and suspending them as most other amateur leagues would do, they imposed a 5-minute major penalty to anyone that fought.
That's not
The
that's
NHL
not bad.
believed that promoting fighting would be
That is not bad. But I also hassle because fighting is allowed in the game. Because in football, if you fight, that's a red card. You're out.
a great marketing tool to grow the game, as boxing was one of the biggest sports in the world at the time. And violence was a great way to get people's attention. Fighting also allows the game to police itself so that incidents such as the deaths in 1904 don't happen. It's what's known as the code
How? Isn't fighting that led into those people dying? So how allowing fighting will avoid people dying?
in hockey. And it basically states that if you do something out of line during the game, then you're going to have to face the consequences. If you
Yo,
slash someone, hit them too hard or from behind, especially when it's a star player, expect someone to be waiting for you with their gloves off. And if you're not ready,
hold
that's
on.
on you.
Are they getting ready to fight? Seriously? Hold on.
The NHL and its players simply believe that while fighting is violent and dangerous, if you remove it from the sport, then you're going to have injuries that are much worse. If players do not have to face the consequences of their actions, they will be more likely to hit players more dangerously.
Oh, so fighting is only in the case when you hit someone hard that is allowed to fight you back. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
And be more violent with their sticks. And there could be unintended
Hold on. Can they use the stick to fight? Really? And somebody also told me that you're not supposed to hit someone on the head.
ramifications as a result. The players that are known to act as the so called police are known as enforcers or goons and are some of the toughest players to ever lace up skates. Bob Probert, Tigers Williams, Ty Domi, Dale Hunter, Georges Larac, they are big
I don't know any of them. Are those the goats of hockey?
names in the sport, and not because they put the puck in the net. These were some of the most feared men in the game, and you always knew when they were on the opponent's bench. The strategy of having a big time enforcer was that if you saw them across from you, you were much less likely to give that
Yo.
extra hit or cross check, and you were always looking over your shoulder to see if they were coming up behind you. It was enough to get you off your game because they knew that if you stepped out of line, there would be
Wow.
hell to pay. Teams would even try to build entire rosters of tough guy enforcers, and the Philadelphia Flyers were the most successful to do so. Their teams in the 1970s were known as the Broad Street Bullies, and they fought, intimidated, and
Did he lose his teeth fighting in the game? This is crazy, bro.
bullied their way to 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals appearances. At the time, it changed the way that the entire NHL would look at building their squads, and those Flyers were influential to the overall history of the NHL. Often, two enforcers will fight each other to try to give their teams some energy or swing the momentum of the game into their favor. These are known as staged fights and can often look like they start out of nowhere. Two combatants will often just skate around a bit, chatting or trash talking each other until
Hold on. So, do you have to train for boxing while training for hockey at the same time, or how does it work? Because this is boxing now. It is not hockey anymore.
they drop the gloves and square off. Sometimes it
Yeah.
happens off a face-off, where both players line up beside each other and drop the gloves as soon as the puck drops. This is enough to send the crowd into a frenzy, as they know they are about to see two of the best fighters on
So you can call someone to come fight and then get ready. This sport is
the
crazy, bro.
ice throw haymakers.
Someone said it was more like football, but no, this is more like rugby and boxing at the same time. This is not like football at all.
At each other. The players do this for many reasons. They may just love to fight and feel like beating the other gives them a sense of pride or establishes dominance. They may do it to wake up their
Okay.
team if they're losing. It might not make sense for fans that have never played the sport, but a one fight can turn the tide of a game very quickly. And
I mean, if you beat the best player of the other team, what else can they do?
often a team that is down by 2 or 3 goals can be sparked by a fight, enough to come back and win the game.
So about the goals, are the goals in hockey like the goals in basketball where you can have 3 points with one shoot, or is it like football when you cannot have two goals with one scoring, only one goal with one scoring?
Even a playoff series. Every now and then, fans will get treated to not just one fight, but a full on 5 versus 5 brawl. Or
Yo,
even a bench clearing brawl where both teams empty onto the ice with a 20 versus 20 rockin' Donnybrook mayhem. These were more common in the past with a lot of famous brawls in the
yo,
70s and 80s, and even the 90s, but they still happen today. Looking back, you can find tons of brawls between rivals such as the Canadiens, Bruins, Islanders, Flyers, and Oilers. With so much going on at once, it's pretty much impossible for the officials to break it up, and they basically just have to let the players go
So why do they take off their gloves? You are not allowed to fight with your gloves. Is that the only rule that is not allowed in fighting?
until they get too tired and give up. One famous incident at an international game between Canada and the USSR in 1987 got so bad that the rink attendants had to turn the lights off to try to stop the fighting. Another famous brawl in 1979 had the Boston Bruins jumping up into the stands at Madison Square Gardens and fighting with
Yo,
fans. One Bruins forward
what? Are you allowed to fight the fans? Man, I was thinking, I don't. This is too much, bro. Imagine someone like the player they have to train for fighting, and then you go fight the fans who are there to support their teams. Doesn't make any sense.
Mike Milbury even went so far as to beat a fan with his
Oh,
own shoe. One of the more recent famous rivalries occurred in the late 90s when the Colorado Avalanche and Detroit Red Wings squared off in multiple
oh,
brawls after a violent hit by the Avs' Claude Lemieux on Chris Draper. These included a couple of goalie fights by Patrick Waugh that are still reminisced by fans to this day. Today, hockey fights are happening less and less. In fact, there were just 224 fights in the 2018
that's less. 224 fights
19 season,
in
the
one
last
season.
full NHL season. That is down from 280 the year before, and the number of fights for each season has actually dropped every year since 2008-9. Over that 10-year
Okay.
span, fighting has dropped 70%, a sign that
Yo, 224 has dropped for 70%. By 70%. Do they fight in every game and multiple times? And how many games are there in the season?
fighting may be on its way out of the game. A lot of non-professional leagues are now trying to curb fighting with rules like receiving a suspension after 3 fights in the Ontario Hockey League. The British Columbia Hockey League only allows 2 fights before supplemental discipline. Having these
Okay.
rules in junior leagues has a trickle-up effect on the professional leagues. If
So
junior teams no longer have a roster spot for an enforcer, then these enforcers aren't going to be getting drafted and signed to professional leagues. If you
Mhm.
add in the general awareness of concussions and the mental health issues that stem
Yeah,
from
hitting
continuously
someone on the
fighting,
head, all
it is
this.
just another strike against fighting in hockey. The sport on the ice has also changed with an increased preference for
Oh,
speed,
whoa,
athleticism, and goal
whoa.
scoring. Rather than
What?
placing value on a big enforcer that isn't as good at skating but can beat anyone up in a fight, these roster spots are hard to come by, and it's no longer as important to use one of these spots on a fighter. Instead, you are looking for a player that can do both. He must be able to play physically and fight when he needs to, while still being able to play the game well and
You have to be angry to play hockey. Otherwise, I don't see you.
contribute to the team. The NHL has also tried to reduce fighting a bit by implementing the instigator rule. It
Okay.
states that a player that is deemed to be the instigator of a fight with an unwilling combatant will receive an extra 2-minute penalty and a game misconduct on top of their 5-minute fighting major.
I
It's not
mean,
called
2 minutes,
often,
that's
but the
not bad.
idea is that it reduces the ability for an enforcer to police the game. If there's a dirty hit, it's not as easy for the other team to make anyone face the consequences for that hit. The enforcer has to have a willing opponent, or he may receive a huge penalty and hurt his team even further. So, while fighting has been reduced over the years, it is still a crucial part of the sport. It helps players police the on ice play so that the opposition doesn't give cheap shots or dirty hits. An increased value on speed and skill will continue to happen, but fighting is still an important way to swing a game or playoff series momentum. As Rodney Dangerfield once famously said, "I went to a fight the other night and a hockey game broke out." Fighting is the key to the fabric of hockey, and while not as
Okay.
frequent as it once was, it will be an essential part of the sport for years to come.
That's what I'm saying. Do you have to train for boxing before playing these games? Yo, I didn't even know that you are allowed to fight in hockey. And somebody in the comment told me that you're not supposed to hit the head, but definitely they were hitting the head. And I think someone also said you're not supposed to use the stick, but they were definitely using the sticks. So what are the rules? What are you not allowed to use when you fight someone? Or everything is allowed as long you can attack by behind and everything. Also, do they how many times do you play each team a year, per season? Is it only once? So 35 games.